What's up, people? I am,
That Hotep Jesus dude.
and welcome to our nightly show. Welcome all. I hope everybody's doing well. Got to battle some fake news today. Shout out to T-Dog. He said HJ learned of you on InfoWars with AJ a few years back. Are you ever going back on? Yeah, I'd love to go back on and talk to him. I was supposed to interview AJ. I'm not sure what's up with him. What up, James? I was at James in the Bitcoin Mystery School class this weekend. Lots of great knowledge on Bitcoin and the happenings of the world of cryptocurrency over there. It was really fun to geek out on that stuff. I gotta say, shout out to Khalid Cooper. Khalid Cooper is like a superhero. Not only does he support this channel consistently, but the man is a beast. Go check him out on Instagram. Follow him, Khalid Cooper. I reposted his stuff to a story, so if you can just go to my account and find his stories there, he's just a beast. Just working out like crazy, young man on his grind. I love to see it. I love to see the young soldiers. Let's get into tonight's topic. Without further ado, I'm going to pull this article up on the screen just to help me walk through some things that we're going to talk about tonight. And then we're going to debunk some fake news about Russia. But first, I want to present to you this little take I have here, Russia's War with Cancel Culture. I published this here on Men of Water. Let me bump this down some so you guys can see my beautiful logo. So there we are. Men of Water, menofwater.com. If you guys are not familiar, please get familiar at menofwater.com. Anyway, so how this came about was I'm an avid chess player. I'm a student of the game of chess. And I was as I always do, usually I go to bed and I catch up on the games of the day and I just watch YouTube and I try to catch up on the games and see who played the day, what moves they pulled off, who won, etc., etc. And then I was watching Gotham Chess, and he was talking about something about the Russian players. Now we all know Russians are they usually dominate chess, or they're at least prominent adversaries in the game of chess. If you're playing a Russian, you should be very afraid. But he mentioned something about the Russians, and Grishuk had some comments about the war, and I wouldn't say he definitely didn't support the war. I'll say that. But he was in the middle of laying out some historical context to the war, and then he was cut off. If you guys want to go look at that interview, just type in chess player Grishuk. Grishuk, Grishuk, and this guy Grishuk gets cut off by the commentator, whatever, and then we'll come to find out FIDE, that's the International Chess Federation. They basically said that Russian players cannot have their flag displayed. They can't play the national anthem. They basically can't represent Russia. Russia can get no burn at a chess tournament. They've banned all the chess tournaments in the country, so there's no FIDE federated or sanctioned chess tournaments happening. They've all been canceled, and I believe also Russia has been canceled from the World Cup and sports, and FIFA and CATS have been canceled, and deplatforming of like here, I'll go to this article here. This is on Gab News, and he talks about Google blocked their apps, Apple blocked their apps. I got an email today from Apple that said anybody in Russia trying to run ads in their app store is basically banned. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Telegram. Imagine Telegram. Damn. I thought y'all said Telegram was like a safe space. Have banned and limited access to their accounts. Twitter has started fact checking and reducing the reach of their links. YouTube demonetized their videos. Reddit has quarantined the R Russia community. Whatever the hell that means. Namecheap, domain registrar has cut off all Russian customers. So yeah. So it wasn't until I saw my beloved chess players be affected by this that I sat down and I was like, what's actually going on here? Right? Because I thought it was just a war, wars fought with bombs and weapons and such. And I'm just like, okay, like this has turned into a financial war, obviously. But I'm like, no, this is beyond a financial war, because I knew the financial war was coming, right? Sanctions, cutting off of deals, mentions of cutting them off from SWIFT, the global payment system that all the big nations make their payments through, whatever, right? Or do their transactions through. So, I started thinking, and I said, oh, wow. It's the real weapon here is cancel culture. That's the real weapon here. Now, I used to say this all the time. I used to say, an individual will be found guilty in the court of public opinion before he's found guilty in the court of law. And be it as the plebs, the proletariat, the rank and file, the hoi polloi, the commoners, the serfs, are all under the spell and the mind control of the mainstream media. Once you have them under control, you can pretty much gain approval for anything. Even if it goes against everything you've been talking about for years, even if it makes you inconsistent, etc., etc. You can still, they're basically saying, hey, yeah, we'll support this, right? So what's the tactic here, right? So the idea is, if we squeeze the citizens of Russia and make their lives hard. For example, some girl who took to Twitter and said, hey, I can't make a living. My Twitch account can't be monetized. What am I supposed to do now? This is my main source of income. So, of course, soccer players, all types of individuals, even, corporations have shut down operations in the country. I think IKEA was one of the corporations that shut down in that country. So the idea is to divide and conquer, right? They want to divide Russia. You have Russia as far as the oligarchs. You have Russia as far as the military and political arms. But it's basically creating a divide between Putin and the people. The people may or may not support war. That's really irrelevant. However, what they do want is this situation to be resolved so they can get back to normal life, because it is hurting them. I know there were mentions of bank runs. Shout out to Phil Foster Fitness, our current sponsor for Motherboard.com. But there's bank runs in the country. The Russian currency has taken, 30% dive against the dollar. So the people in the country, this cancel culture is actually an attack on civilians. And this eerily reminds me of the Holodomor or Holodomor, right? So let's go to Holodomor. Many of you people know I've spoken about this in the past. Let's go to an absolutely reputable website, Wikipedia. And this was something known as a terror famine or Great Famine in the Soviet Union from 1932 to 1933 that killed millions of Ukrainians. The term Holodomor emphasizes the famine's man-made and allegedly intentional aspects, such as the rejection of outside aid, confiscation of all household foodstuffs, and restriction of population movement. Grain producing areas were affected. Millions of inhabitants of Ukraine, majority were ethnic Ukrainians, died of starvation, peacetime. And this is all following the Bolshevik Revolution. This is under Stalin, Joseph Stalin, right? And this was to eliminate a Ukrainian independence movement, right? This is under Joseph Stalin and the communists, right? So I said, oh, this is like a Holodomor, except for Russia. That's how I saw it. That's how I saw it. I saw it as a Holodomor for the Russians. You're actually targeting civilians. This is supposed to be a war against two militaries, and the entire world, or I should say Western world, is not attacking Putin. They're attacking civilians, so those civilians will attack Putin. So they're using civilians as fodder. They're using civilians as their second line of defense. Can we even say that the Ukrainian military is a first line of defense? I guess maybe. But they're using civilians. They're actually targeting civilians. And to me, that is inhumane. The decisions made by Putin should not cause consequences for the citizens of Russia. They didn't ask for this. But the Western world doesn't care. They don't care about civilians. And I'm gonna show you some fake news later, Australia and what they're saying that you can and cannot say, some 1984 stuff. We'll go into that in a moment. So then I started thinking to myself, I said, wait, holy smokes. Where did cancel culture really, really start to explode? Now, I'm 41 years old, so I don't exactly know what cancel culture was like in the 50s, 60s, 70s, or even the 80s. And I'm sure it existed. But I don't think it existed at the scale that it exists today. So I asked myself, where did this cancel culture come from? And you know where it started from? Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter was, I would say, the genesis of cancel culture. At least in my lifetime, in my life period. This is where I would say this is where cancel culture was perfected. It was during the Black Lives Matter era. And it all comes down to the stench in which you can place upon ideas, concepts, words, and people. The word conservative equals bad. It's poop. MAGA, poop. Red hat, poop. Trump, poop. Republican, poop. Capitalism, poop. So they smear these ideas with the stench of poop, so people would avoid them. And the campaign during the Trump era by the mainstream media, or the fake stream media, was very effective. Absolutely. More effectivo. More effectivo. I don't even know if that's a Spanish word. But it was very effective, right? When I say it was effective, I mean, it was at a point where I know Uncle Hotep was the first person I saw with the MAGA hat. White, black, blue, whatever. Uncle Hotep was the first person I saw with a MAGA hat. They came out, he was the first person I even saw with a MAGA hat. Before I even knew what a conservative was, this guy had a MAGA hat. You fast forward years later, and it wasn't even safe to wear one of these. The public was ready to attack you physically. I saw it in friends and family. I saw what it did to people, how hot it got them. One day I was hanging out at my homie's house. We were in the backyard kicking it. And we got to talking. And I mean, I'm pretty visible online, so they know what I do online. So his cousin was there, and somehow we got into talking about politics. And this individual was ranting about Trump, but he knew my stance, and he was pointing at me and yelling and screaming like I was Trump. And I'm looking at him like, yo, you really mad? Like he was mad. Like he was ready to fight mad. And I'm like, yo, you really don't like that guy? He's like, no, I hate him, da 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 da. But he was like directing his energy towards me. And I was just like, wow, like they really got these people wound up. One of my other homies, one of my low bros came to my house. We hung out. I was giving him some life advice, some business advice. And I said, why you want to follow me on Instagram? Because I noticed he unfollowed me. He was like, man, I just couldn't do it anymore. All your Trump stuff. So I played him the Malcolm X clip about what he said about conservatives and liberals, whatever. Liberals are wolf in sheep's clothing. I said, yo, you trust Malcolm X, right? You trust his words? He said, yeah. So he left the house and he was a little bit more comfortable with my stance and sort of got where I was coming from. But again, he sort of later on reverted back to his old ways. The whole, whatever mainstream media says is sort of the truth of things, right? Which is just completely absurd to me that people actually believe that stuff. Anyway, especially black people. It's absurd that black people listen to this stuff because they're the first ones to say the media has portrayed black people unfairly, negatively, and smeared our likeness. I don't understand how those same people who have never had a great relationship with the media believe the media now. That just, it defies all common sense. But again, when you understand psychology and you've conditioned an individual pretty much from adolescence, right? You condition this individual based upon Pavlov's bell, right? When we talk about Pavlov's bell, he conditions the dog to respond to the bell, to salivate and be ready for food. Well, the same thing happens with the N-word. From adolescent, a black individual is trained like Pavlov's dog experiment to respond to the N-word. It's a trigger. Must attack. Heard N-word, let's attack. You're triggered with events of trauma, right? A child who has no PTSD is given PTSD. If you are a black child living in America, sometimes people say about black people, they say, you didn't live through slavery. And although that is technically true, subconsciously it's not true. We have had to relive an event we didn't live through our education system and through media in Hollywood. From adolescent, a black child is infected with PTSD from slavery. How do I know this? Because I had it. And it took me years to shed this. I'm still shedding some of the triggers that have been imposed upon me. And not only by media, but by family via media. So the family's infected with it, and then they infect their children. Like, for example, one of the things that in a black household you might hear, which I don't tell my kids, is because you're black, you got to try 10 times as harder as a white man. And we talked about this with Project Rook. So these ideas of life is harder for a black person in America are implanted in your mind. But then when we talk about like slavery, like I remember having to watch like slavery films in an all white classroom and being embarrassed, feeling embarrassed. I don't know why. I just felt embarrassed. I'm like, yo, I got to sit here and watch like people who look like me get beat while I'm in a room full of white people. I felt like everybody was looking at me while we were watching the film, whether they were or not. That's how I felt. And then we go to the media and it still hasn't stopped. And we must blame our black boule as well. Every time I turn around and there's time for a historic movie involving black people, it has to be about slavery. It has to be. That's all they do. They create a slave movie after slave movie after slave movie after slave movie. So you say we didn't live through slavery, but we are consistently reliving it. via the media, via school, etc., etc. That is the program implanted in Black Americans' mind, inside our subconscious. We are influenced, we are given PTSD, we are given triggers. So when we grow up and it's time to ring Pavlov's bell, the media knows exactly what to say to make a boomer react, to make a Black individual react. White supremacists, KKK, Hitler, all these different ideas. So they say, we know these. What did Biden say? He gonna put y'all back in chains. So he knows the triggers for Black people. So you say back in chains, and then we, our subconscious mind all of a sudden jolts our conscious mind, and now we're like, oh my God, no, not slavery. And then they put that on Trump. And because they have the greatest influence, they're able to run this trigger over and over again. It's almost like a hypnotist, right? When you go and you watch a hypnotist and he hypnotizes somebody, there's a trigger word, right? He says, when I say goose, you guys start barking like a dog, right? So they'll hypnotize the people and they'll say, all right, we cool. Then they'll say goose. And the people will just start barking, right? It is this type of hypnotic trance that has been used against Black people. Now, why do I say that? I'm bringing this to a point, obviously. But we had to lay that foundation so you understand how they could have been used to create cancel culture, to perfect cancel culture. B. Weezy Bird, thank you for the super chat. He said, girl on Twitter told me I'm a Russian sympathizer for saying Russian citizens shouldn't have their banks and PayPals cut off. That girl said they lucky to be breathing, so they should go fight for Putin. That's a damn shame, bro. That's a damn shame. Okay, so like I was saying, so Black Lives Matter comes around. Now, keep in mind, in 2014 and 2015, I told Black Twitter, BLM is not to be trusted. It is a PSYOP. It is a rainbow coalition group. I was castigated. Invective comments were thrown my way. We all know that story. Smear campaigns against Hoteps and all types of stuff you see on Google. Stuff that has nothing to do with us is just like put on Hoteps, whatever, right? But this is the smear campaign because they know how effective we can be, which sort of validates our work. Anyway, let's continue. So what happened? They had a black box day. Post this black box. And many people were bullied into posting this black box. If you didn't post this black box on Instagram, you're a white supremacist, white nationalist, you're racist, KKK, whatever it is, right? So a lot of white folks were pressured. I had a friend call me who's not neither white nor Black. And he said to me, yo, what's this box going on the internet? Da, 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 da. And I started laughing. I'm like, what you mean? He said, well, because he runs a cafe. And he said, I posted, an image of a cappuccino this morning and people were yelling at me for not posting a black box. I don't even know what the black box is. And I said, oh, man, you committed a crime. You didn't post a black box today. So all these comments are coming in on his Facebook feed about why aren't you posting a black box? You don't stand in solidarity with Black people. So it was under this guise of BLM. And remember, a lot of this is bot farms. A lot of this are burner accounts, right? And the burner accounts influence people. So you'll see someone getting attacked and others may join in because they think these other accounts are real and this is the way to act, right? So a lot of this stuff is astroturfed. We have to know that, right? And then anything on the opposite side is nerfed. So hold on a second. Damn, I didn't realize we had so much to cover tonight. As I started talking, I found out this stuff is deeper than I thought, right? So bullying became okay. We heard Who's the black lady out in California? Look like James Brown, the black lady. I always forget her name. Somebody help me out here in the chat. While y'all give me the name, I'll continue. She said, if you see these people in the street, push up on them. She basically sanctioned attacks on individuals. Maxine Waters, thank you. Maxine Waters, thank you, chat. Maxine Waters. She basically sanctioned to attack people. And that was okay because, well, she's on the side of the good guys, right? She's on the side that has all of the media power. Okay? She's on that side. And again, media is the court of law. You first find you guilty in the court of public opinion. You cannot be found guilty in the court of law if you are innocent in the court of public opinion. Unless you're select cases like Kyle Rittenhouse. He was definitely innocent. He definitely was. For example, old boy that transitioned, Caitlyn Jenner, right? Now, prior to Caitlyn Jenner's transition into a woman, she murdered somebody. Literally murdered somebody, and could potentially see jail time for that murder. I believe it was like a car crash or something like that. And magically, this individual becomes Woman of the Year, and that case just goes away. Why? Because this individual understands that if I'm innocent in the court of public opinion, I can skate in the real court. Sweet James Jones, he said, like Kaba Kamene said, the most powerful tool in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. That is correct. That is correct. And that's what they're doing. That's exactly who they're using. They're actually using Black Americans to push their agenda. You'll see a lot of black people like posted the Ukraine flag, and they're like, matter of fact, this is probably a good segue into this clip. Let's pull this clip up on the screen and let's look at this clip here. Hold on a second. I'm going to put this up on the screen. And I want you to see the difference between the genders and how they view media. Okay? Let's pull this up on the screen. You'll see it right now. Hold on. 3, 2. Here. Let's play this clip.
And in terms of Putin giving the message that it's okay to invade countries, I think the United States sent that message when it invaded Afghanistan. I think the United States gave that message when it invaded Syria. I think the United States gave that message when they murdered Muammar Gaddafi in Libya.
Now, so far, nobody's on this stage is nodding, right? Because he's taken a stance that they cannot use to make Russia look bad. But he's speaking true facts. He's speaking true facts.
And we, of course, can't forget what we did to Saddam Hussein in Iraq. So, and by the way, Putin isn't trying to take over Ukraine. If he wanted to do that, it would have been done 3 or 4 days ago. So what is
Now watch right here. Pay attention right here. I want you to see the caping for Ukraine.
He's not trying to take over Ukraine.
He's trying to demilitarize and denazify the country.
He said denazify the country.
And in the process is invading and
notice how she cut him off.
Destroying civilian locations, and civilians are dying along the way.
Again, notice the mention of civilians twice, right? This individual has really no case, no legs to stand on to back her claims of anything that has to do with the Ukraine-Russia conflict. So she's got to say civilians, civilians, civilians. Why? Because she knows it's an emotional trigger for people.
Being killed along the way. And the accusation that the Ukraine is run by Nazis that's debatable, and it's also hard to understand.
I didn't say it was run by. I didn't say it was run by Nazis.
Now that's another tactic they'll do. They'll put words in your mouth. They'll say something and pretend like you said it. He didn't say that, and he corrects her right here.
I didn't say it was run by Nazis. What I said is there's a very strong Nazi contingent called the Azov Brigade in Ukraine. That
he said the Azov Brigade.
The United States through the CIA has been funding, training, and used in 2014 to overthrow the democratically elected.
Now watch this.
Government of Viktor Yanukovych.
Let me pull Mary.
Right here.
Overthrow the democratically elected government of Viktor.
You see how quick she was to throw that hand up? Hold up. This nigga just said too much. He's about to fuck my job up.
Overthrow the democratically elected government of Viktor Yanukovych.
Let me pull Mary in here.
Let me cut you off and bring Mary in here because I need some help. Look at this.
Overthrow the democratically elected government of Viktor Yanukovych.
Let me pull Mary in here.
On this screen here, you see 4 brown faces. Now, I'm talking to black people right now. If you white, you listen, that's cool. Black people, what the fuck Russia and Ukraine got to do with us? Why this show right here, it says in the bottom left-hand corner, Black Issues. Black Issues Forum. That's the name of this show. Black Issues PBS, Black Issues Forum. What does Ukraine and Russia have to do with black issues? Because PBS is paying the salaries of these individuals, or at least 1 or 2 of them, right? And this lady in the left-hand corner is probably getting a salary, some kickback. She's an employee of some sort. What does Ukraine and Russia, 2 white countries, European, what do those got to do with black issues? So we go back. And what did I say? The problems of black Americans were exploited to perfect psyop warfare. Progressive elites don't care about black lives. They merely use the emotional outrage to sharpen their greatest sword. And that's what they did during the Trump era. They used Black Lives Matter, the problems of the minority, to sharpen their sword, cancel culture. And now here we are in Russia, and that sword that has been sharpened, that is black people, is being used against the Russians. They're going to take some intellectuals, some black intellectuals, I call them pseudo-intellectuals or pseudo-lectuals. They'll take these pseudo-intellectuals to spread misinformation to the black masses, to make us believe that somehow Russia and Ukraine is a black problem. You know what a black problem is? These gas prices under Joe-flation. That's a black issue. That's a black issue. Now think about this. They used black lives to get Trump out of office. And now minorities living under the poverty line are hurt most by the Biden administration. So we're going to come back to this super chat from Sweet James Jones. He said the most powerful tools in the hands of the oppressor is the minds of the oppressed. It's the minds of the oppressed. They literally use them against themselves. And they're able to do that because of these pseudo-black intellectuals. Pseudo-lectuals. Jonah Ryan, thank you. He said, similar to, thank you for super chat. He said, similar to we living on stolen land with no mention about reservation life today, like North America had no war before 1492. Oh, man. Talk about it. Talk about it. Hold on now. Let me give you a Don DeMarco for that. So again, during the Trump era, black people were used to perfect cancel culture so that the oligarch, so that the super upper class could get their way. There's, oh, this guy Trump's in the way. Let's get our plebs out there. Let's scramble them. Let's, you know, what are their triggers? Slavery, KKK, white nationalists, white supremacy. All right, turn on all the triggers, ring the bell, get these people to get him out of here. Let's fund some, just like the dude said. He said, what they do? They backed the coup in 2014 to remove the democratically elected government in Ukraine. That's what my black man just said just now. And before the black lady like, oh, whoa, hold on now. Whoa. We got to cut to the next person. Oh, you done said too much. You ain't got no rebuttal for the truth. The truth get leaked on that PBS line. You ain't got no rebuttal. Now here's something else I've said. Because these triggers are emotional and women are the emotional side of the species, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, women are the emotional arm of the human species. Men are the physical arm, right? That's why we fight the wars. That's why we build the houses. That's why we open the can of tomatoes, etc., etc. Women are the emotional arm. That's why they beautify the home, beautify the garden, make the food taste good, etc., etc. They're the emotional arm of things. They nurture the children. The people in power know women are susceptible to emotional triggers, so they use emotional triggers to control the women. So the black community, being the matriarch that it is going to have most of their political decisions not made by men, but made by women. In fact, it shouldn't be made by one gender. It should be made by both genders. They should come together and say, hey, yo, here's this, here's that, da-da-da-da. But when the black man get up there and tell you the country was overthrown by Charlie Indigo Alpha, you like, oh, no, let's cut to my sister. Because she's going to tell us everything that the white liberal taught us to say, and that's going to be safe. This is the narrative we're running with. You know, I don't want to lose my job. I don't want to be canceled. These white progressives going to lynch me if I don't say what I'm supposed to say, if I don't stay on script. So when we look at, you know, some people say, why do black people vote for Democrats? They don't. Let's stop saying that. First of all, more than 50% of the black population doesn't even vote. Okay, let's start there. Now, out of the population that does, we're talking about mostly black women, and we're talking about boomers. Is the age groups for people that vote, period, skew higher, right? That's why every year they run these campaigns, vote or die. They get Diddy and everybody come out, get everybody to rush to the polls and say how important it is to vote and all this other shit, right? Oh, we got to vote. We got to go vote, or else, you know, Trump going to put us back in chains, right? But it's mostly women leading this, right? And then black men following, right? Because they don't want to get canceled by black women. They don't want to, you know, look bad in front of black women. They still trying to have a good relationship with their women. They want to protect black women. And because many of them have been cucked and are too afraid to give their real opinion, well, the political decisions of the black community are made by women. And the men just go along and say, all right, whatever she say. Because the men are too busy watching sports. They don't even care. They're like, I'm just, you know, the game's on tonight. What do you say, vote for Biden? All right, babe, no doubt. Because the woman is the only one really paying attention to the politics anyway. And that's another problem in the black community. The woman's the main one that's got CNN on all day long. Grandma wake up, she turned the TV on. Black men, we turn on Sports Center. And then that's running all day long, right? We're not even turning on the news. We won't even know about Ukraine and all that stuff. It wasn't for social media or the black woman. But you see, when we look at the screen, it's the black man trying to tell y'all the truth. Y'all gonna say he bugging, but it's the black woman that's being used by the white progressive. PSYOP warfare, psychological operation on the black mind. And it was perfected during the Trump era. And now it is being used against a nation. Here I wrote Russia gets canceled. So we have sorry about that. They said they are responsible to their employees, etc., etc. See how to redact to try to play. Anyway, so now that they've perfected this, right? So they've perfected, first of all, how to get the message out there, how to spread the message like wildfire, how to get people to support it. They've mastered the bot farming, right? And how to make the bot farms work and the burner accounts work. So yeah. Ashton Clark, BLM are possibly pro-Russia. I mean, they are trained Marxists, and ironically, these black Marxists are saying white privilege towards media coverage of Ukraine. But if Russia is being invaded, they're going to be like, don't hurt my Russia. Catch the Can said, no sleep week, but we grifting, baby. Yeah, you already know what time it is, man. Yeah, you see, yeah, Charlie Indigo Alpha got me buffering. So that's basically what happened here, right? So cancel culture. Now, don't forget, under cancel culture came deplatforming. Prior to cancel culture, there was no deplatforming. I remember when the first wave of bans hit the internet. Alex Jones and Farrakhan were both banned, right? Now, when I first saw the bans come through, Twitter tried to play it off and say, hey, these bans are bans against white nationalists, da-da-da. And I saw a bunch of black accounts saying, oh, yeah, good job. They're getting these people out of here. And I'm thinking in my head, like, well, the greatest threat to free speech is the public. Okay? And the fact that you're cheering on the fact that these white nationalists can't use this platform and speak the way they want to is going to backfire at some point. And that's what we saw. Later on, we saw black Twitter accounts en masse get removed and deplatformed, and everybody's turning around like, yo, what the hell? Why did I lose my account? We're talking about massive black Twitter accounts completely obliterated. Okay? Under the Obama era, actually. No, actually, when was this? What's this? It's right after the Obama era. Right after the Obama era. Completely obliterated. Just, I've watched dudes who built great black Twitter accounts, like just funny accounts, just, you know, shit posting. 50,000 followers, 100,000 followers, gone. They come back, they only got 1,000 followers. Just gone overnight. Right? And I said, see, you were so worried about limiting the voices of others that your voice got limited. The greatest threat to free speech is the public. That's why I tell people, I don't care what somebody says online. Like, it's my choice to read that. As long as there's nobody threatening violence or threatening people's lives or making somebody else's life physically uncomfortable or virtually uncomfortable, like, you know, posting people's pictures online or some shit like that, you know, then no, it shouldn't happen. There should be no banning of people. So what happened? They banned Alex Jones and they banned Farrakhan. So they were like, we're going to give one to the liberals and we're going to give one to the conservatives, right? Because the conservatives, they hate Farrakhan. And then the other people, liberals, they hate Alex Jones. So it was just like, we'll make both of them happy. We'll ban both of these characters from Twitter. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's pretty clever, right? Because if they would have banned one and not the other, they would have been in an uproar. But you kind of quiet the noise when you ban one prominent individual from both sides, right? So when I saw that, I said, okay, I see how they moving. And then people started asking me, Hotep Jesus, how do you still have your account? Now, remember, when people were shit posting online, I wasn't shit posting. My Twitter account, I was a very serious individual. I've been a very serious individual most of my adult life. I was trying to figure out how to help people. That's what I was doing online. So there was nothing for me to get retroactively banned for. Other people was online using the internet for whatever purposes. You know, people like to play around online. I just don't see, like I told somebody one day, I said, yo, if I wasn't doing business or something positive with the internet, I probably wouldn't be on it. I don't even like the internet that much. You know what I'm saying? I'm only on it because I feel like I can affect the world from this place, right? And I can build something from this place. And from the time, you know, I started on the internet, I was trying to build things. I was trying to bring people together. I was forming coalitions, organizing, et cetera, et cetera. And some people say, you know, I'm wild for saying that. You know, I like to use the internet for leisure. That's fine. You can use it for whatever you want to use it for. That doesn't mean I have to use it for. So they said, how come you ain't banned? Well, second of all, during the Trump era while everybody was getting banned, I read 1984. I know what they're going to do. They are going to limit the use of words. So I didn't combat their narrative. When they said, yo, this is the narrative, I looked at it like, oh, okay, no doubt. Because here's the problem, right? The left does something and we react. When the left does something, I go, oh, okay, that's what's up. And then I go mind my business and I do me. But people have been trained to react to the left. And really, that's the setup, right? That's the whole setup. It's like, we're going to do this thing. People are going to react. And when they react, like judo, we're going to use their force against them. Oh, look at this fool. Ban. We told you. Couldn't say that about the bug. Ban. Can't say that about the beer bug. Ban. Can't say that about bug 19. Ban. When bug 19 hit, I ain't had nothing to say on Twitter. I wasn't tweeting against it. Why? And I've said this before, we are behind enemy lines. Act as such. And then people come out and they say, oh, we're going to create these free speech platforms. There is no such thing as a free speech platform. You know what the closest thing to a free speech platform is? 4chan. But you have to be anonymous. If you want free speech, you have to be anonymous. That's the only way you're going to get free speech. Or it's the closest thing to free speech is to be anonymous. So what you say isn't tied to your person. You can say whatever you want to say, but nobody knows who's actually saying it, right? That's the power of being anonymous. I don't use the internet anonymously. So you say, oh, we have a free speech platform. All right, cool. You go to that free speech platform, whatever it may be, and you say something on that platform that people don't like. Visa, MasterCard, Stripe, PayPal will still sanction you. No matter what you say anywhere. You can go to any social platform you want and have free speech, whatever you want to do. But if they find out and you're prominent enough and they don't like, Alex Jones was operating from his own platform and they banned him from the internet, from what he was doing on his own platform. Gab had their own platform and was banned because of what they did with their own platform. They were banned for what other people were doing on their platform. Stripe was taken away. PayPal was taken away. MasterCard, Visa, just all these Patreon, just completely deleted them, right? So people say, oh, we got a free speech. There's no such thing as a free speech platform. Whatever you say anywhere can be held and used against you. If you go to another platform and you say something about the people who can't be talked about, whoever that may be, rainbow people, black people, whoever, and you say something on that platform, you find out, you'll be fired from your job. You'll be sanctioned some way, somehow, unless you are anonymous. So only thing that guarantees you some amount of free speech is anonymity. But you do not have free speech. Now, are you protected by the Constitution from speech? Absolutely. But when you can't provide for your family because of something you said or typed online, there's no free speech. That speech came with a cost. That's not free. It came with a cost. This is what it is. It's not free speech. So again, I reiterate, there is no such thing as a free speech platform. Whatever you say on another platform can be held against you. If you say something inflammatory enough on another platform and you come to Twitter and don't even bring that content to Twitter, Twitter can say, you know what, this individual doesn't belong on this platform because of what they said on another platform. Absolutely they can. Look at Russia. They just proved it to you. Russia can operate in a military fashion and be banned from everything. Not even cats are safe. Not even Russian cats are the latest to be banned from international competitions after Ukraine invasion. Poor little old lady want to just take her cat to the little competition. Look, they got the black man on the screen. You see him right there? They always use us. They always use us to do their work. You always see us. You always see us there. But cat, right? Not even the cat safe. You can't even bring your cat to the cat competition and say, look at his pretty fur. That's not allowed. There is no such thing as a free speech platform, people. We have to stop saying that. You know what free speech platform is? It's the new NFT. That's what it is, right? When you hear words like, shout out to Cyprian for this too. When you hear words like NFT or Web3, even DeFi, right? These are just marketing terms. They don't actually exist. They don't actually have any real utility. They're just marketing terms. So you hear free speech platform, it doesn't exist. It's a marketing term. Right? It's like somebody saying, oh, this juice right here is 100% organic. Well, organic means it contains carbon. It's a marketing term. Or you see on your it'll say 100% juice, right? And you go, look, and there's juice from concentrate, or there's no concentrate in it at all. It's completely fabricated juice. But what does juice mean? According to the FDA, juice doesn't mean comes from a plant. It's not what it means. It means a concoction that looks like a liquid. Right? So it says 100% juice. 100% juice means what? It's a marketing term. Organic today means marketing. It's a marketing term. You look at something, oh, it says organic. Yeah, organic what? Organic crap. You'll see something on there that says natural flavors. Natural flavors aren't good for you. There's another chemically contrived concoction that the FDA has approved for some odd reason. But it says natural flavors. You see the word natural on there and you go, oh, it's got to be good for me. It says natural. No, natural flavors is a marketing term. Free speech platform is a marketing term. There's no place on the internet you can go unless you are anonymous and say what you want without repercussion. That's why I don't join these other platforms, because I'm like, no matter what I say, I'm so high profile that if I go to Gab and say something, or I go to Rumble or wherever I go and I say what I want to say, fucking some left-wing magazine or rag of a media outlet is going to write a story about me and it's going to make me look bad. So it doesn't matter where I speak, I'm still going to be targeted. There is no free speech platform for Hotep Jesus. It doesn't exist. They're going to follow me wherever I go. Right? And then they'll call my business partners up. Hey, you do business with this guy? My business partners, in the past have said, hey, somebody sent me this email about you and I just deleted it because it sounded erroneous and stupid. Right? Because I choose business partners that are on the same wavelength as me, because I'm smart like that, right? Like if we don't agree politically, I don't even want to do business with you, right? Because I don't want to hear down the line, oh, I heard you say something, and what does that got to do with making this money? Anyway, but there's no free speech for Hotep Jesus, no free speech. So I come to YouTube and I dance around the algorithm, right? We don't use their words. That's another thing you got to understand. They're not banning you for spreading the truth. What they're banning you for is the usage of their terms in a way they have not authorized. They coined the term COVID-19. I don't use that term. That's their term. It is a legal term. So once you start using their words, you are liable to their rules. That's why I don't use their words. That's why we speak in code over here. I don't use Charlie Indigo Alpha. I don't use their words. And that's where we have to be careful. And that's why I can operate on YouTube and not get no strikes against my channel, because I'm not using their words. These are legal. These are technically, many of these words are legal words. They're protected by copyright law. Many of these terms are protected by copyright law. So when you start infringing on the copyright, they have every right to ban you. Am I getting too educated for y'all? Yes, vacation. We say vacation. We don't use the other word on this channel. We call it the vacation. Did you take the vacation? The 9 pages of side effects vacation? We don't use that term here. They made that term up. At one point, there was no such thing as a vacation. What you had was this. I'll educate y'all real fast. What you had was this. And I'll put this on your screen right now. You'll see it right here. I'll go to images. And you had something called variolation, right? This is the original way that they induced antibody creation in your body. They take a little bit of pus from the disease, pop it in your nose, and would go through your system naturally, the same way you would inhale it, right? That's why some people swear they use the mask or whatever that's supposed to do. And they blow it up your nose, so it goes through your immune system naturally, right? First it hits your innate immune system, then your adaptive immune system, then your interferon system, right? They didn't inject anything. You'll even see the 3 cuts variolation process. You'll see right here. This is the origins of the vacation. So they have the variolation, so they'll cut your skin and then place a piece of the pus. Even this is better than the injection directly into your bloodstream, right? So this is the origin of the vacation. So I don't use the term vacation because I don't know where they got that from. I don't know if it's copyright protected, et cetera, right? All I know is my history. That's all I know. I try to learn my history. Cassius Can said, yo, did you notice the misinfo war on IG doesn't show up anymore? They moved to the next phase, programming complete. Yeah, on some things. I did see one on the Ukraine stuff, but you're right. I didn't see it on the bug 19 stuff. He said, and no added sugar means chemical sweeteners. Exactly. Vodka equals cow. Exactly. That's what vodka mean. It means cow. Came from cowpox. When they're trying to battle cowpox. Anyway, enough of that. So again, no such thing as a free speech platform. Let's go to misinformation. Let's talk about misinformation. Where is it? Here. Okay. So we have sanctions on Russia, right? This is part of cancel culture. I guess this is from Senator, the Honorable Maurice Payne. I believe is how you say her name. Maris. I don't know. Who cares? Anyway, this individual, March 8th, 2020, as you see here, the date. Let me fix this on your screen here. I want you to be able to see the text as I read it, obviously. Okay, let's put this on your screen. So here it says the Australian government is placing new sanctions on Moscow's propagandists and purveyors of disinformation who are trying to legitimize Russia's unprovoked, unjustified invasion with false narratives such as the denazification of Ukraine. This word right here, denazification. It's one thing to say, hey, yo, Ukraine got Nazis. But when you start saying denazification, it's not exactly a copyrighted word, but it's a term they own. I wouldn't use this term. I would not use this term because they control it. So if you're an account out there and you start saying denazification, I'm like, all right, you just want to get banned. I wouldn't use this term. I would just say, yo, they got Azov battalions. Y'all know about the Azov battalions? That's simple. Let's talk real. Let's not use these made up terms. Like, this is a made up term, right? That's why it has the hyphen in there. Nazification. Like, this word doesn't exist. Like, this is a made up word. So they own it, right? Because they made up the word. Now they own it, right? But Azov battalion is a very real thing. So I would never say denazification. I would never say that. It's just not what I would do. I would say, yo, they got Azov battalion out there. Y'all never heard of them? And let people go from there, right? Because if people want to know the truth, they'll find the truth. You just got to tell them where to look. And saying this sidesteps what's really happening. So it says the targeting of propaganda and disinformation is one of the latest steps in Australia's work with international partners to impose, what does it say right here? A high price on those responsible for and complicit in Russia's war on Ukraine. Remember I told you about free speech? No, there is no free speech. There is a high price to pay to speak what you want to say. I pay a high price to say what I want to say. Even as safe as I speak, I still pay a high price to say what I want to say. My life is affected by what I say. Right? YouTube doesn't monetize my videos because of what I say. And that's fine. Together with partners, we will drive Russia out of our economies, supply chains, and what does it say right here? Airwaves. Cancel culture. Cancel culture. This new round of sanctions will impose targeted financial sanctions on the armed forces of Russian Federation and targeted financial sanctions and travel bans against additional six senior Russian military commanders responsible for implementing naval and ground and air attacks on Ukraine. Last week, Australia also imposed targeted financial sanctions on a further 11 financial institutions of economic significance to Russia, including the Central Bank of Russia. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has been accompanied by a widespread disinformation campaign, both within Russia and internationally. Tragically for Russia, President Putin has shut down independent voices and locked everyday Russians into a world characterized by lies and disinformation. As if these people don't lie, as if we don't face lies and disinformation consistently. CNN, a bastion of lies. The addition of sanctions on those responsible for this insidious tactic recognizes the powerful impact that disinformation and propaganda have in conflict. The Australian government is sanctioning 10 people of strategic interest to Russia for their role in encouraging hostility towards Ukraine and promoting pro-Kremlin propaganda to legitimize Russia's invasion. This includes driving and disseminating false narratives about, here's that word again, the denazification of Ukraine, making erroneous allegations of genocide against ethnic Russians. Now, this is what we're going to dive into in just a moment here. It says erroneous allegations of genocide against ethnic Russians in eastern Ukraine and promoting the recognition of the so-called Donetsk People's Republic and Luhansk People's Republic as independent. Now, I'm sure I said those names wrong. One day I'll get the pronunciation right. I just haven't retained that yet. The Australian government continues to work with digital platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, and Google to take actions to suspend the dissemination of content generated by Russian state media with Australia. Remember, I told you they perfected this under the Trump era. Facebook, Twitter, and Google, the big tech, big three. Our designation, I think the main one missing here is probably Apple. Our designation of the Russian armed forces covers the Russian ground forces, Russian Navy, Russian aerospace forces, as well as strategic missile troops and Russian airborne troops, and has the effect of prohibiting the export of goods from Australia to all Russian military end users. The Russian armed, so not even the Australian people aren't even allowed to export goods, and allegedly it's for Russian military end users. Allegedly. The Russian armed forces are directly responsible for undermining Ukraine's sovereignty. This is a really wild claim to say that Russian armed forces are directly responsible for undermining Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity and hundreds of civilian deaths. So here they go again with this term civilian, right? Civilian deaths. So we're going to go into that in just a moment. I'm going to show you something. With our global partners, we will collectively work to remove Russia's ability to continue financing its war by targeting its most significant banks, including those critical to its defense sector. So again, financial war, because they're getting their ass kicked on the ground. Australian partners will continue to impose costs on Russia's egregious, unlawful, completely unjustified war in Ukraine. We again call upon Russia to withdraw its military forces immediately from Ukraine. All right, cool. All right, let's back it up some. So right here it says erroneous allegations of genocide against ethnic Russians. Erroneous allegations. Does anybody here believe that those allegations are erroneous? Press 1 in the chat if you think that's some BS. Press 1 in the chat if you think that's some BS. And then we're going to take a trip down memory lane. We are going to go into our past, and we're going to see what the military, I'm sorry, I was about to say media, but they're kind of like a military arm as well. We're going to take a flashback to the past. Okay, so I see some ones in the chat. Shout out to my mods, Sketch Therapy. Appreciate you, bro. Other mods that are in here. I'm sure I got other mods in here as well. Thank you for holding me down. Jabari, Jeff Curtis in here. Appreciate you. Jeff is the homie. Love you, Jeff. All right, let's keep going. Right here. Enmity and civilian toll rise in Ukraine while attention is diverted. So basically what they're saying is civilians are dying in Ukraine, but nobody's paying attention. And we're going to show you that in a moment. We can go right here. Sabrina Tavernese and Noah Schneider. What's the date on this? July 28th, 2014. Things were oh so different then, right? Donetsk, Ukraine. See it right here, right? One was a retired cook. Another installed alarms in cars. Another was a cleaner in a grocery store who had gone out to buy ground beef to make her son meatball soup. While international attention focused on the tragedy of Malaysia Airlines Flight 17, I know you guys remember that, the deaths of these 3 civilians, some of the roughly 800 who have been killed in the battle over eastern Ukraine have gone virtually unnoticed by the outside world. Now, why did I highlight that? Because today, everybody is scrambling, acting like they care about Ukraine. Where were you in 2014? Did you care in 2014? Or you're just a Johnny come lately? All of a sudden, oh, we got to put the Ukraine flag in our bio. Put the Ukraine flag in our bio. Jeff Curtis is way too late. Now, everybody, you had a chance. You had a chance to help these people. Why nobody helped these people in 2014? Where was NATO then? Where was NATO then? Where were they? NATO. Where was NATO then? Where were our friends then? Says Ukrainian military's advances to reclaim territory from rebel control have come at a steep human cost. Now here she says erroneous allegations of genocide and disinformation, right? So I guess in 2014, the New York Times was a conspiracy theorist. These are erroneous allegations in 2014. I guess that's what they're saying. Is that what she's trying to say? That this 2014 article is not legitimate? It says according to United Nations count. Let's pull that count up. I actually didn't even hop in here and look. Damn, they got 65 pages. I might go through this one day. Let's read the executive summary. The continuing deterioration of human rights situation in eastern Ukraine, the rapid escalation of hostilities, and the growing impact on the rest of the country have been the main developments during the past month. Egregious human rights abuses have been committed in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions of eastern Ukraine, where armed groups supporting the self-proclaimed Donetsk people and Luhansk people, DDPR and LPR respectively, have, until recently, controlled a large part of the territory, including most of the main population centers. There have been hundreds of abductions, but with many victims tortured and increasing numbers of civilians have been killed. Right? Now, remember, this is from, Office of the United Nations High Commissioner. So this is from the UN, right? Got to put that in context. The Ukrainian security operation referred to as the anti-terrorist operation aimed at regaining control of the regions of Donetsk and Luhansk held by these armed groups involves the army, the military police, and national security, and volunteers battalions. In any law enforcement operation, security forces must act proportionally to the threat and must at all times respect the right to life. In addition, the conduct of hostilities, all those involved in hostilities must comply with the principles of distinction, proportionality, and precautions. This is particularly important in an environment in which armed groups and civilians are intermingled. So the armed groups and civilians are intermingled. The current intense fighting using heavy weaponry in and around populations has devastated towns, villages, demolishing residential buildings and killing an increasing number of inhabitants. Precautionary measures should have been taken to avoid the deaths and injury of civilians. Right now, this might be vague to you, but when we go back to New York Times story, you will start to understand what's happening here. There's been deliberate targeting by the armed groups of critical public utilities like water, electricity, sewage plants that have shut down essential supplies to the residents. Public and private properties have been illegally seized and residents destroyed. Banks have been robbed and coal mines attacked. Railways were blown up. Hospitals and clinics were forced to shut down, and essential medicines and emergency medical services become scarce or totally unavailable. People were unable to leave their homes in some places, trapping older persons and persons with disabilities. The rule of law no longer existed and was replaced with a rule of violence. The increased level of fear, intimidation, harassment, fighting inflicted on the population of the region resulted in an ever-growing flood of internally displaced persons. The regional government, in effect, ceased to function in two eastern regions. Some local authorities continued to work, but with greatly reduced control, or were co-opted by the armed groups. Salaries, pensions, and other social welfare payments stopped in some places. The police and judiciary ceased to function. Right? So far, the UN is making it seem like it's the armed groups in this area. And I'm not saying the armed groups in this area are completely innocent people. I would never say that because I'm not there. I don't know what the fuck's going on in Ukraine. But I do know there's more to the story. In some places, the situation is worse than others. A normal population of 100,000 by early July was less than half in northern Donetsk region. So it says here, the residents were particularly badly affected due to an almost constant shelling and fighting there for weeks as the armed groups and government forces clashed. Right? So it says right here, the residents were badly affected by a clash between armed forces and the government forces. Okay. The professionalism of armed groups fighting in the East has become openly acknowledged and self-evident. Their leadership, many of whom are nationals of the Russian Federation, are trained and hardened by experience in conflicts such as Chechnya, and Russian Federation. What was previously something of a ragtag armed group with different loyalties and agendas is now being brought together under the central command of these men. Heavy weaponry, including mortars and anti-craft guns, tanks, armored vehicles, and landmines are now being used by them. As the Minister of Defense, we are in a state of war. The armed groups in Donetsk have themselves joined in forces, self-proclaimed People's Republic of Novorossiya. They claim to have adopted a constitution, making preparations, establishing unlawful self-government. I don't even know what they mean by unlawful. Like, who becomes the arbiter of what's lawful and what's not? That's the weird part. The government of Ukraine pursued its anti-terrorist operation under the direction of the State Security Service as it sought to regain control of the territory. 2 weeks involving the heavy use of weaponry and airstrikes. Following the announcement of a peace plan by the president of Ukraine on the 20th, the government implemented a 10-day ceasefire, but this was reportedly breached. And at least 108 times, killing 27 Ukrainian soldiers and wounding 69. At least 9 people were involved in the fight were also killed, including an 11-month-old child. After the ceasefire, the government mounted an intense offensive. But the price was high, at least 30. It says right here, the government mounted an intense offensive, recapturing territory, including the main strategic base of the armed groups in the Donetsk region, the city of Slovansk, and stating it had regained control of the Ukraine-Russian Federation border areas that had previously been under the control of armed groups. But the price was high, with at least 30 civilian deaths, many wounded, and a great deal of destruction to the recaptured villages, towns, and cities. So right here, the UN report is admitting that the government of Ukraine has murdered, right here, 30 civilians. The level of rhetoric and propaganda escalated. Escalation is deliberately targeting civilians. So what they're saying here is this is propaganda coming from the pro-Russian forces saying that Ukraine government purposely targeted civilians. The president, however, stated his readiness to restore a ceasefire upon the conditions. Blah, blah, blah. All right, so I'm not going to read this executive order. I just wanted to give you guys a look at that. This executive summary is actually about 4 pages, 5 pages, whatever. All right, let's go back to the New York Times. You can continue seeing that. So obviously we have a war-torn area, right, that nobody cares about. UN put this paper out. I'm not going to say how I feel about the UN. If your Kufi's on tight, you already know how to look at the UN. Anyway, it says, according to UN United Nations count released on Monday, 799 civilians have been killed since mid-April when Ukraine began to battle insurgents here, and at least 2,155 have been wounded. Okay, so that's their toll. It says the killings have left the population in eastern Ukraine embittered towards Ukraine's pro-Western government. So right here, New York Times is saying that the population in eastern Ukraine feels bitter towards the Ukraine pro-Western government and are helping to spur recruitment for pro-Russian militias. So the people in this area are saying, yo, we ain't messing with that pro-Western government. We rocking with Russia. And it is what it is. Now let's see why. In time, even if the Ukrainian military routs the rebels and retakes the east, it says right here, the civilian deaths are likely to leave deep resentments here and could complicate reconciliation efforts for decades. So right here, they admit Ukrainian military creating civilian deaths. What they say here, they said erroneous allegations of genocide. Now, I don't know how you want to define genocide, but we're not going to do that today. All I'm doing is showing you what they used to say. The rising toll of the conflict in eastern Ukraine, the first open hostilities in Europe in 15 years, is a direct consequence of the nature of war here. Much of the fighting takes the form of low-tech airstrikes and artillery fired at a distance from aging weaponry, tactics that can inflict significant harm on civilians. In comparison, 330 Ukrainian soldiers have been killed, the United States said. There are no estimates for the rebels. So we don't know how many rebels were killed. Jonah Ryan, thank you for the super chat. He said, as long as they get Drago, avenge Apollo Creed. Yo, think about that movie. That movie set a precedent, right? That movie, again, psyop warfare. Let's make this movie about how the Russians are bad. Now everybody hates Russians. And then you fast forward and now everybody's like, yo, forget Russia, right? Because Apollo Creed. Anyway. In a report released on Thursday, Human Rights Watch documented 4 instances of the use of unguided Grad rockets, which killed at least 16 civilians in and around Donetsk in 9 days. While both rebels and Ukrainian forces used the rockets, descendants of World War II era weapons, the investigation strongly indicates that Ukrainian government forces were responsible for the 4 attacks. Then a link to this video right here, which is from Human Rights Watch. And it says here, Ukraine unguided rockets killing civilians. Here they say erroneous allegations. So this is what this lady said. Erroneous allegations. I guess these are erroneous allegations made by the UN and Human Rights Watch. It says using these kinds of weapons in populated areas is a violation of the laws of war, said Ole Solvang, senior emergencies researcher at Human Rights Watch. International allies of the Ukrainian government, the United States, the European Union should condemn this and urge the government to stop. Why haven't they? In fact, today, everyone's pro-Ukraine. Ukraine's military strongly denies responsibility for any attacks that have caused civilian deaths. Vladislav Seleznyov, a military spokesman, did not comment on the report itself, but he said that soldiers were under orders not to harm civilians. He says, "We are prohibited from using artillery in residential areas," he said. "Yes, we have these weapons," he said, referring to grads, "but we never use them in civilian areas, no way." Now, if y'all want to believe his account, be my guest. I've seen enough movies. It's a very poor reference to reference, but I've seen enough movies to know you never trust what the military says they do. But the military's campaign against the rebels has increased the likelihood of civilian casualties. I guess this is another erroneous claim made by the New York Times. It says right here, against the rebels has increased the likelihood of civilian casualties, given how deeply the rebels have embedded into the civilian population. So basically they're saying the rebels are so deeply embedded in the civilian population, you got to kill the civilians if you want to take out the rebels. As Ukrainian troops inch towards Donetsk and Luhansk, in recent weeks, two regional capitals with a combined population of 1.5 million, residents feared the worst. Look into what happened in Slavyansk, a small city in the north that the military took by pounding rebel positions and flattening neighborhoods where the rebels were. Those fears were soon realized. One of the main rebel bases in Luhansk is in a military recruitment office next to the main bus station, and it drew intense shelling, leaving power lines scattered like string over the shrapnel-torn pavement. Jonah Ryan, thank you. He said OSCE 1500 ceasefire violations by Ukraine on 2/23. Yes. I did see that as well. And another, when I was researching, I think it was in like one of these links. Is this it? Death toll up to 13,000 Ukraine conflict, says UN. Yeah, I saw it here. This is OHCR. It was in here somewhere. Anyway, thank you for that tidbit of information. So where are we? And in Donetsk, where Ukrainian troops have pressed forward from north and west for weeks, the Marinka, Petrovsky, and Kubiashevsky neighborhoods have come under heavy rocket fire. The barrages against all three areas, according to Human Rights Watch, originated from positions held by the Ukrainian military. Right. So now remember this interview with this black woman right here who was crying about civilians. Right. That's what she said. Oh, the civilians right here.
Civilian locations, and in the process is invading and destroying civilian locations, and civilians are dying along the way.
Civilian locations and civilians are dying. Did you care about the civilians when the Ukrainian military was killing them, ma'am? Senora? Mr. Seleznyov said he could not comment on specific events. Okay. On July 21st, Kubiashevsky, in a leafy area near a dental office in the library, Sergei Yakshin, 41, the man with the alarm business, was walking to his car. He never made it. A rocket exploded nearby, killing him and another man instantly. A short walk away, a different rocket hit Valentina A. Surmai, a 17-year-old pensioner who worked at a local grocery store to support her blind husband. The cook, Ala A. Vastina, 60, bled to death in her kitchen after a piece of shrapnel penetrated the wall of her house. She wanted to make a soup, said Ms. Surmai's son, Sergei, standing in his underwear, his eyes red. I told her, Mom, don't go out, he said. He barely recognized her body in the morgue. Half her face and her left side were gone. Her death enraged Mr. Surmai. Listen to what he says right here. If they give me a gun, I'm ready to go fight, he said. After this, it's either us or them. There's no choice. We have to go to the end. This is a young boy who had his mom murdered. So when we think about the rebels in this area, whether these rebels are right or wrong, I don't know their origins, etc., etc., But it seems like they're getting recruits very easily because of the shelling from the Ukrainian army. And now we have Putin assisting these people in this region. So when you tell me that there aren't people in the region that are pro-Russian, I don't know if I can believe you. I don't know if I can believe you. Because people are getting murdered. A friend of Surmise, Alexandra Rudd, 74, this is a 74-year-old woman, said she, like her friend, hated the rebels. But she blamed the government for Ms. Surmise's death. It's like I said, I don't know nothing about these rebels. I ain't saying the rebels are innocent. But this woman right here said, I don't like them rebels. But the government killed Miss Amai. I don't like them rebels, but the government killed Miss Amai. I want to shout to the whole world, she said, her voice shrill as artillery boomed in the distance. Stop it. Get out. Leave us alone. I guess Miss Alexandra Rudd is making erroneous allegations. Are these erroneous allegations, Maurice Payne? As she had to deal with the loss of life of her friend being murdered. So let's continue. It says the violence has rearranged habits and daily routines. Konstantin, a morgue worker in Luhansk who refused to give his full name for fear of exposing himself and his family to attention, said he and his wife now sleep on a mattress stuffed into a small underground space in a garage used for repairing cars. Tea time chatter was about what survival supplies to put in their cellars, which now double as bomb shelters. Anatoly Leonovich, the head doctor at the Luhansk morgue, said that after a particularly vicious battle 2 weeks ago, he received 15 bodies, all but one twisted and torn, consistent with artillery wounds. The next day, he was still getting calls. Who are you looking for, he said, speaking into a Soviet-era telephone. Is he a civilian or a rebel, he asked. Rebels collect the bodies of their comrades and do their own paperwork, he said. Ah, yes, I have him. Skylar Vladimir, year, birth 1973. All right. Establishing responsibility for civilian deaths has been difficult. The shelling in Luhansk, for example, touched off ferocious arguments. Supporters of the government in Kiev accused the rebels, while those who favor Russia blame the Ukrainian forces. So when you tell me there's nobody there that supports Russia, they're basically telling you right here there's people that support Russia. Idiot, shouted a stout woman with fiery red lipstick. She was glaring at Boris Bessarab, a bespectacled security guard in a Luhansk neighborhood called Peaceful that was hit on July 14. He had been explaining why he believed that the angle of impact meant the rebels had fired the shell. Take your glasses off, she fumed, stalking away. This is why Ukraine is going to hell. She told that nigga, take your glasses off. You can't see? Talk about the rebels did it. The local disputes mirror those on larger scale. With Russia and Ukraine blaming one another for attacks that kill civilians, civilian deaths have been at the heart of Russia's narrative against Kiev. Though rarely mentioned is the fact that rebels caused them too. Now, I'm not going to say rebels don't cause them. I'm sure the rebels have caused some civilian deaths. In one case, Ukraine claimed that Russia carried out an airstrike on an apartment block in the city of Snitsny, suggesting that the plane traveled from across the border more than 12 miles to the south, but the angle of the 10 holes punched by the bombs and the direction of the damage indicated that the bomber was flying from west to east. Some residents suggested that the target might have been a rebel base just a quarter of a mile away. So, let's go look at Ukraine on the map. Let's go look at it. They said it looked like it came from west to east. This is Russia. If it came from Russia, it would go from east to west. But they said it went from west to east. So it wasn't Russia. At least that's what this article is saying. I'm no expert. I'm just reading the New York Times. That's all I'm doing. July 29th, 2014. Some residents suggested that the target might have been a rebel base just a quarter of a mile away. If it's a rebel base, why would the Russians hit it? Obviously, they believe it's the Ukrainian government. War is as much about perception as reality. Bingo. That's exactly what we're talking about today. The perception of the war is bigger than the actual war. Shout out to Red Ben L. Thank you. I appreciate you for the super chat. Much love. May God bless you and all of your loved ones. War is as much about perception as reality, and in some ways, truth is powerless against what people want to believe. Truth is powerless against. Everybody wants to believe Putin's a bad guy and I need to put this yellow and blue flag on my bio, because truth is powerless against what people want to believe. We've seen people make claims about Nazis in Ukraine. Then people are doing mental gymnastics in my mentions. I don't argue with them because I ain't got time to argue with people. Either you take the information, you don't. I can lead you to water. I can't make you drink. But we see the people, and I see the arguments. Like I see somebody will say, "Oh, that's Russian propaganda." And I don't respond. I come back maybe a half hour later, and there's people arguing with this individual. And this individual who believes there's no Nazis in Ukraine is doing mental gymnastics around all the proof being thrown at them, because the truth is powerless against what people want to believe. And that's my thing. Like when I talk to people, when they say, "Hey, how do you red pill somebody?" I say, well, first of all, I can't red pill anybody who doesn't want to be red pilled. It is impossible. It's an uphill battle. So when I speak to somebody, the first thing I judge is, where's their desire at? Is their desire to listen to me and to understand my side? And I detect very quickly that this person is hostile to anything that may be contrary to what they believe. And once I detect that, that tells me how I'm going to respond to this individual. Most of the time, if they're hostile, or I detect that they're hostile to something I may inform them of, I keep my mouth shut. There's no reason to talk to this person. I don't want to create any hostility in my life and any friction in my life. So if you want to be stupid, you want to be uninformed, you want to be dumb, you be that. When you're ready, I'll be here with the truth. Okay? Or I can lead you to the truth. I can point to the truth. Right? But people, hey, it's powerless because you first have to want to know the truth. Now, when somebody comes to me and they're like, "Yo, don't exactly know what's going on. Can you help me out?" Oh, yeah, I'll spend hours with you. Let's sit down and talk. Let's walk through this. Let me help you out. All right, maybe not hours. I don't have that much time. But I'll sit down and I'll help you out. Point you in the right direction. It says most people interviewed at attacker sites accused who? Say it with me now. Ukrainian forces. Ukrainian forces. That's what it says right here. Most people interviewed at attack sites accused Ukrainian forces. A pattern that bodes ill for Ukraine's government as it tries to put the country back together. It says most people interviewed at the attack sites accused the Ukrainian government. It said, "Look, there's your Poroshenko," yelled Victoria Ayatova, referring to Ukraine's president Poroshenko and pointing to 14 Lenin Street in Snitsny, where at least 11 civilians were killed. So she points to a spot where 11 civilians was killed and said, "Look, there's your Poroshenko. Who will answer for these human lives?" She added as she began to cry. Again, must be some erroneous claim. Must be some erroneous allegation. This 2014 article. Poor Victoria. Piles of personal items were strewn through the streets around her. A sewing machine lay between a teacup and an old Samsung laptop. One wall of a corner apartment remained intact, shielded from the blast wave. It told of life before the bombs, potted plants on a shelf, etc., etc. There, amid the debris, a 4-year-old boy, Bogdan Yasterbov, was trapped. As a yellow crane lifted concrete blocks from the wreckage, local residents sat in shock, and the blue-eyed Bogdan screamed. It took hours before anyone heard him. And the cell phone video shows red-faced rescue workers noticed him and yelled, "Children, be quiet." Men began digging. Bogdan came into view, face down in a pocket space under the rubble. He was carried out laid on a stretcher, limbs limp, his bright blonde hair darkened by dust. Bogdan survived, but his mother, Daria, did not. Here, this individual, let's take a good look. Take a good look at her face. Let's take a good look at her name. Australia's Minister of Foreign Affairs. And her counter propaganda campaign of erroneous allegations has been debunked by little old me and my YouTube channel. And people will tell you all types of things about Ukraine and why we should support the Ukrainian government. At the very least, I think we need to mind our business. That's what I believe. Mind your business. It ain't got shit to do with us. Do I feel bad for people as in the conflict? Absolutely. I don't want to see war. I don't like war. All war is a bank of wars. If you bought my book, which you need to buy, I don't, because nobody's going to tell you what's in this book. You could go get Creature on Jekyll Island and it doesn't have half the information that's in this. And that's no diss to Creature on Jekyll Island. It just covers something different from what I cover. But this is a strong history of central banking and their relation to war. Because I literally put conspiracy of money and war, because every time I looked at monetary policy, it surrounded a war. So I linked money and war together, and I showed you how every time a monetary policy is passed, there is a war somewhere nearby. Whether that's the Revolutionary War, Civil War, World War I, World War II, etc., etc., there was a war nearby. So we know this is a financial war against Russia. Again, I've said this before. An individual asked me, he said, what do you think is the most important time period in all of human history? And he mentioned Rome. So he pointed to Europe. So when I think of Europe, I don't think of Rome, right, as being the most important event as it relates to our lives today. I believe the most important event as it relates to our lives today was the Russian Revolution, the Bolshevik Revolution. And this is a continuation of the Bolshevik Revolution. That's what this is. What we're seeing happening right now is a continuation of the Bolshevik Revolution. The bankers have not taken control of Russia. And they want to. That's what they want to do. That's why they're fighting a financial war. Right? We've seen that. We've seen evidence of that. They're fighting a financial war. The Bolshevik Revolution literally murdered an entire family, men, women, and children, allegedly. Some people say they escaped and they weren't really murdered. They never found the bodies. I don't know. End of the day, it wasn't no czar anymore. They overthrew that government. In fact, the Bolsheviks overthrew the government. A new election was held because they wanted to bring about democracy or whatever that's supposed to be, right? And the Bolsheviks lost that election, had to overthrow that government and do it all over again, right? But yeah, the Holodomor is not taught in schools, exactly. Putin considered the Bolshevik Revolution to be a crime. Absolutely was a crime. Absolutely was a crime. And I'm going to be writing another book on communism soon after I get this next book out. I have some things to get off my chest with this next book I'm writing. Within the next 2 years, I'll be publishing 3 more books. So look out for those. One more in conjunction with an attorney. I have another one coming, which is a self-help book, which is more like just showing people how to be successful with a very simple trick I've learned over the years. And then I think I'm going to work on the communism situation. That one's going to be fun for me because I've already started the research and I'll be doing more research, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you for posting the link to my book in the chat, mods. I appreciate you. That's Sketch Therapy. Thank you, bro. But yeah, so the Russian Revolution, I mean, for example, one of the stories you'll read about in the Patriot Report is the Civil War, okay? And many people don't know this, but Russia was an ally of the North. In fact, without Russia, the North doesn't win the Civil War. Without Russia, the North does not win the Civil War. I'm going to say that one more time. Without Russia, the North does not win the Civil War. You think the North is going to defeat France, England, and the South? Because they were surrounded. English troops were stationed in Canada. French troops were stationed in South America. That's why you got Louisiana, right? Louisiana Purchase, et cetera, right? They were surrounded. The problem was the waters, the Navy. Getting supplies to the North was a problem. And the Russians used their Navy to say, hey, look, we're going to keep the waters safe and neutral for you to make sure you can get supplies, and we'll assist you. Right? Now, go watch my video on the Civil War, because I'm not going to tell the whole story, because I told it on that. But that's the reason why we have Alaska as a territory today. It was part of the repayment. Russia owned Alaska. And the North said, all right, since you helped us out, we'll take that good for nothing land off your hands. We'll buy it back from you. Or we'll buy it from you. Okay? And that's how Alaska became a part of the United States. Russia. Russia has always been an ally of freedom. Jabari Judah, tuition paid. Thank you for the super chat, bro. Going to have to check the replay. Little man woke up. He gets mean allergy attacks this time of year. Stay with the late night red pills, HJ. These folks don't know the power of the night learning yet. Oh, the night learning is so potent. I love this time slot for myself and the people. This is a great, great time. I'm usually up at this time anyway. I'll be watching some chess videos and falling asleep in just a few moments here. Then I'll be back up in 3 hours. Anyway, this week we're not sleeping much this week. At least I hope not. So Russia has been a consistent ally of freedom. Consistent ally of freedom, period. I mean, while slavery was legalized around the world, Russia had abolished slavery. So if you're a black person, you're like, oh, I hate Russia. It's just like, well, you know, Russia abolished slavery before anybody, right? The royal family abolished slavery. If you're a Christian, you should love Russia. Very Christian country. Christianity thrived at very high levels during various periods in Russia, period. The royal families of Russia, the czars, very Christian, very wholesome families. If you, as primary source, want to link to my video about Russia, it's actually the Civil War video, where I talk about the links between the Civil War and the bankers. But that's in my Patriot Report series. I have a book called The Patriot Report. But what I did was I created a video format. I did video presentations based upon this book. It's called The Patriot Report Playlist. It's on this channel. You know, if you're going on a trip with your family or whatever, whenever you got time, sit down. There's several videos in there. Some of them are 30 minutes. Some of them are an hour. Some of them are 2 hours. They're very long. Some of them, sit down, watch them pieces at a time. Get you some real history, okay? You don't have to buy the book. Anthony C. Sutton. Anthony Sutton's a great resource. I quoted him in his book. Absolutely. I love Anthony Sutton's work. So go check that out. It's Patriot Report. Those videos are right here. So you don't have to buy my book if you can. You know, it's a great resource to have, but I broke it down in video format for you. And not everything is, there's some things in the book that I left out of the presentations because it just would have made the presentation way too long, but the presentations are there for you. Anyway, Russia has been a great ally of freedom over the years. And it wasn't until, now remember, the Bolshevik Revolution was financed by Wall Street. And that's going to be included in my book when I write a book about communism. And I'm going to be taking you from the inception of communism to today. We're going to cover all of communism, the ideology of communism, the economics of communism, and the history of communism, and the psyop warfare of communism. Absolutely. David Zientara, thank you for the super chat. But Russia has been an ally of freedom for a very, very long time. And it is due to media propaganda that people have a bad impression of Russia, a negative impression of Russia. And it as you see today, Skoda say you just got the book to support. Thank you, bro.
Hotep.
Appreciate that support. But yeah, man. Today we see it, right? We see the propaganda against Russia. And I'm not saying Russia's innocent. I don't think any of these countries are fully innocent, but I do think countries have the right to look out for their self-interest. And it seems like when other countries look out for their self-interest, the West likes to intervene. And just like the black man mentioned, Syria, Libya, Iraq, Afghanistan, Lebanon, Iran. What am I missing? Somalia. Can we talk about Somalia real fast? Let's talk about Somalia. This has gone under the radar a little bit. All right? Let's put this on the screen. Like, while everybody's distracted by Russia, February 24th, New York Times. U.S. carries out first airstrike in Somalia since August. We're currently bombing Somalia. Like, while everybody's distracted by Russia, we're bombing Somalia. Like, we're in the middle of a war right now, and nobody's talking about it. Right here, it says right here, June 21st, 2021, U.S. carries out first airstrike in Somalia since Biden took office. Biden in the middle of a war right now with Somalia. Nobody talking about it. Right here. Biden authorizes new bombings against Somalia. August 2021. They bombing Africa right now. This man, Jackson Hinkle, says Biden illegally bombed Somalia and Afghanistan last week. Now this week he's telling us he can't extend the eviction moratorium because it would potentially be illegal. All right. In Somalia, the U.S. is bombing the very terrorists it created. August 18th, 2021. What do you think the fate of Ukraine is? What do you think the fate of Ukraine is? And I said this before. Everybody wants to talk about, well, some people are talking about the Nazis and some people are trying to deny the Nazis are there. And we know that they're there, right? Now, what happens when we arm these people and then we turn around years later and we go, oh, wait, these people are bad. And now we're bombing Ukraine. This is a possibility for the future of Ukraine people, that we could turn around and then have military operations in Ukraine 10, 20, 30 years from now. Who knows who's going to be president by then? Maybe it's The Rock or somebody. There's going to be, I believe, military options in the country of Ukraine carried out by the West. And I'm just going based upon the patterns I see. But nobody's talking about the fact that, now we said Trump was so evil. Africa's being bombed right now. Africa. Black people worried about Ukraine. Africa's being bombed right now. So worry about Ukraine. See how the distraction works? Do you see how the distraction works so well? Trump was bringing troops home. Biden sending them away. I saw something else about, the new bill. The new bill is talking about, they got some new bill. I think Marjorie Taylor Greene was breaking it down about how the Democrats got some $1 trillion bill, and in there is about sending troops somewhere to Ukraine for something. I don't know. I haven't looked into it yet. However, everything they blame Trump for, Biden is now doing. They told Biden defund the police. Biden said no in his State of the Union address. Fund the police, fund the police, fund the police. That's what he said. Literally, just like that. Fund the police, fund the police, fund the police. Fund the police. This what y'all voted for? This what y'all voted for? Now, when I was telling people, and I don't vote. But when I was telling people, if you was going to vote for Trump, they told me I was crazy. But these people voted for Biden, and now they're dealing with those repercussions. Now they're dealing with the high gas prices. He didn't want to open the Keystone Pipeline. Trump would have had the Keystone Pipeline open. We'd have had all the gas. We had all the gas. I saw a story today that said they're asking Elon Musk to shut off the Tesla cars in Russia. Now, I came on this channel before and I told you about them Tesla cars. I told you Tesla's Skynet. And I told you at any given time they're going to shut them cars off. That's why I said I'm not with the electric car evolution. All right, you want to give me an electric car? Cool. Don't control my shit from no satellite. So we're going to have to learn how to jailbreak Tesla cars. That's what the future looks like. I have a Tesla, but it's jailbroken, right? This is the type of shit that we're looking at in the future. Jabari Judah, thank you for the super chat. Isn't there a certain semi-famous congresswoman from Somalia? You talking about? I know you talking about. Ella Omar, something other. Too bad she's not famous enough to abdicate for her country. Uh-oh. So, I don't know what Elon's going to do, right? So somebody said, well, Elon's not going to do that. He's not going to shut up the cars. And that may be true. I would not argue that. However, Elon is not going to be alive forever. Say that again. Elon's not going to live forever. I don't care what he develops in Neuralink. One day there won't be an Elon Musk. And Tesla has a board, has board members, a board of directors. And when those board of directors say, we shutting them cars off, they shutting them cars off. It might be out of Elon's hands now. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying it's a possibility. Because every company has a board of directors. I don't know how their balance sheet is set up or how their cap table is set up. So I don't know who has control and interest and say so and voting rights, et cetera, et cetera. I haven't looked at their organization setup, organization structure. I haven't looked at it. But all I'm saying is I'm not messing with no car connected to the satellite. I want me one of them 67 Shelbys. I need me an old school. I don't want no electronics in my car like that. Yes, eventually the board takes over. Exactly. So when Elon is gone and everybody's riding around in their fancy little electric cars, because everybody's got them, Ford, GM, everybody's coming out with their electric cars, and they're all going to be satellite controlled. And the reason why they're doing is that because when they want to, they're going to deplatform you from your car. Right? Remember I told you there's no such thing as free speech, right? So you're going to run to a free speech platform, or at least your children will, and your grandchildren, whoever it is, because this is happening years from now. They're going to go to your free speech platform. They're going to say something that nobody likes, and their car going to get shut off. They're not going to be able to go to work and say, yeah, no, you're not allowed to use this car because you said something on a free speech platform. Free speech platform's a honeypot, man. Let's be honest. This is what it is. It's like, hey, you can say whatever you want over here. Here, say it over here so the world can see. Don't say it over there so the world can see. Say it over here. Get canceled over here. Screw your life up with us. Let us get paid off of you screwing your life up. That's what they're basically saying. You know, another reason why I don't combat the narrative on Twitter so much, you know, and fight every single battle from the left. Because this ain't a battle of words. It is definitely a battle of information. But I think that they control the information battle so much that it doesn't make sense to fight it. I think that's a futile battle. I come here and I speak to, I don't know, we got 368 people here. I mean, wow. Whoa, 300 people. I'm a very small voice, right? So I do what I can, right? Talk to, and sure, obviously this, you know, I speak to 300 voices and that goes out to more people, sure. and more people reach. And then there's people that are going to watch the replay. So maybe it's tens of thousands or whatever it may be. Either way, it's very insignificant in the grand scheme of things. The real battle is in what you do. When I look online and I see the left setting up shit, I'm like, okay, so the left is controlling the people's minds and the babies' minds through the education. So, you know what? Shout out to Amber for thinking of this. How about we pop up a homeschooling program? And we support homeschooling, right? So instead of like me arguing and saying, yo, your liberal institutions are garbage, schools are garbage. All right, you're right. Schools are garbage. Now you go online, you argue and you tweet and you meme the hell out of that shit. But the real work is over here doing things like this. And shout out to the people who have donated to our campaign. We've raised $7,400 so far. Appreciate you. 79 donations. Thank you to everyone who contributes. HotepNation.com/donate. Donate, or just go to HotepNation.com. You'll see it right there. But that's the real work. You can talk online all you want. But what really matters is, are you organizing? And what are the systems you're creating? I'll say that again. I'll say that 2 more times. Are you organizing? And what are the systems you are creating? Are you organizing? And what are the systems you are creating? Jabari Judah said batteries for EVs made by third world child labor. What the F? Exactly. He said, once you get over 100K subs, they feel threatened. I'd love to hit 100K subs. That's the goal, is to hit 100K subs by the end of the year. Hopefully guys can make that happen for me. He said, you and Tanai need some funding. The ears you need are listening. Indeed. Thank you. I have Tanai on the channel tomorrow night. I'm bringing Tanai. We're going to go over the 9 pages. 9 pages of side effects. Azami says, we've seen it in movies and TV shows like Westworld and Fifth Element, where they shut off your car until the police come. Exactly. Predictive programming, right? But they know what's coming. They're telling you. Right? They telling you. Shout out to Jeff. Is Jeff not a moderator on this channel? Jeff, you are now a moderator. Shout out to Jeff doing amazing work over at menoforder.com. He said, we are creating menoforder.com. Exactly. That's what we do. Everybody else is complaining. We're building. Okay. That's what we do. Right? Everybody's talking about, oh my God, masculinity. Well, guess what? No worries. We got you covered. It's right here. We got you right here. We covering all things men need. You don't got to worry about your men's magazine being cucked. We got you covered right here. Right? We cover the main things, right? Money, dating. It's very important. This is a very important category, not to be overlooked. Relationships between men and women are very important. The nuclear family, heterosexuality. That's what we do. Mindset, sports, tech, and culture. See that word Christianity right there? They don't like that. Shout out to DT Dakota. Also, shout out to Jeff again. We got the JRE archive. Come in here and you get your summary with the timestamps. You can hop right to the timestamps of what they're talking about. You hit it and it'll take you right to the timestamp of that particular episode. Right? They talk, we build. We're not YouTubers. We're not YouTubers over here. We build. We are builders. That's why we always say Hotep and build. Come on here. We do our Hotep thing. I log off. We build. Y'all help us. And we build. That's how you fight the left. By not fighting the left. They want you to fight. Because they are judo practitioners. So they are judo practitioners. So the more you fight, the more they whoop your ass like Steven Seagal in the movies. You see what I'm saying? So we don't fight, we build. So that's been another late night with Hotep late night broadcast. We appreciate you for your support. I'll see you on the next stream. Love y'all. Hotep and Bill.